All right, good evening, everyone. This is the Community Preservation Committee regular meeting. It's Thursday, January 16th. We are in person at the Primetime Building and available via Zoom. This meeting is being recorded and can be viewed at a later date on the Tom and Dayton YouTube channel. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 5:01. If we could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United States of America,
Republic, one nation,
under God,
liberty.
indivisible.
I have such a hard time saying the Pledge of Allegiance when people are on Zoom and they're saying it.
Yeah.
1 second delay. All right, so member introductions, Kevin Smith, Chair, and Parks and Recreation Representative.
Alicia Wilson, Vice Chair, Member at Large.
Jackie Hills Historical Commission.
Jonathan Gale,
Dave Eckerson, at large and financial officer.
All right, so first thing we had was review and discuss and approve the prior meeting minutes from October 21st, 2024. Did everybody get a chance to look at those? They look good to me. I didn't see any changes in these. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve the October.
November 21st.
November
Sorry.
21st, 2024 meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion made and seconded.
5:02 p.m. Two notifications. News. Collapsed staff. Now. National Geographic. Notification.
Jonathan, was that part of your discussion on the minutes?
what was that? What are you talking about?
We picked up on your phone.
Well, tell it to stop talking, will you?
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor will roll call.
Alicia Wilson, aye.
Jackie Hills, aye.
Jonathan abstaining. I don't believe I was at that meeting.
Dave
Dave,
and Kevin is an aye. So we just had this happen actually with the school building committee for like housekeeping motions from to make a motion to approve or to actually approve things like meeting minutes. You don't have to abstain if you weren't at the meeting. You still have the capability as a member to approve or motion for the meeting minutes. It's like just so you know, Jonathan.
Okay, I've always been told otherwise, but I will.
Yeah,
So I will half abstain then.
Okay. Dave, do you have anything new for financial reports?
yeah, no, I don't have anything new on that, so I don't think there's any urgent there. But I will check in with Serena and see what is up. If there's anything to update there.
Okay, yeah, I haven't seen anything come through that's changed from the last time we've met. Like obviously, like our balances slowly go up just from the taxes that are collected, but there hasn't been anything significant that I've seen come through. I do have the most recent because we're entering into budget season, but there's nothing there.
Kevin, speaking of budget season, out of curiosity, have you heard anything else recently from Stuart as to whether or not what he thinks we might be looking forward to going into the state budget season, or if there's anything that we can do to support the work that they do with regard to the budget or anything like that?
I don't have the number in front of me, but we did, in our November meeting, we did talk about what our state matching fund was. I think it was like whatever the standard percentage. I just don't have it in front of me, but we're only, as of right now, we're only gonna get the single matching funds. We're not gonna, we're not in line to get second or third round funding as of right now, but we've seen in the past, every so often it does happen where it kind of pops up and we do get a little bit extra more than we were expecting, but I haven't heard anything on that front. And no, I haven't seen anything as far as like, oh, reach out to anyone to show support for the CPC. I think they're kind of reorganizing and getting some stuff in order to continue to lobby. But I did also make sure that our updated roster was sent to Stuart and Chase. That way everyone on this committee should be getting any correspondence from them as far as things like that. They send out like almost like a monthly newsletter. And I know that they had been sending stuff to some former members, but it's been updated, so everybody should be getting information from them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Kevin, well, I was just checking in, Stuart's, latest communication. It was an 18% match. So, he was a little disappointed with that, but I guess there just hasn't been the revenue to support it.
Hey, Dave. All right, so old business, project updates. I don't have anything.
I do, so we have two historical projects, one is the West Dayton survey. The commission received 8 of the forms, 8 out of the 10 of the survey forms to review. Stacy's still working on 2 of them, and we'll send any edits back to hers, and so once that's done, we'll have final copies. And then on the Mount Hope Finishing Company, the National Register nomination, the Board of Selectmen signed the contract with Stacy on January 8th. It looks like the project will begin in the spring, and it'll take 30 weeks from start to finish.
I did have a comment on that because I was at that selectmen's meeting. I don't know, I guess maybe that is the easiest avenue to go, but just for like all intents and purposes. Because it was approved by the taxpayers and it's gonna be paid by the CPC, I don't believe you technically have to go to the selectmen to
No, I don't
approve.
think
I think we
technically-
could have came and
Yeah.
just did it all here.
Yeah, but they've historically have always approved all the contracts.
Yeah,
So,
but it's just, I was just
Yeah.
thinking like, they don't have a recommendation on anything that we do, so like, I don't think it's necessarily appropriate for them to have. Cause say if they decided to deny it, it's ultimately not their say,
right,
so
right.
just, cause it
That's
it could
interesting.
go both ways.
Yeah, because the commission can actually enter contracts too, by law. But ever since I've been involved, it's always been to bring forward to the Board of Selectmen, that's kind of like our culture, so.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think just the way that we do things in general too, is like you actually, obviously the best practice would be to bring it before the committee, we would take it to a vote, but we did already approve that
Yeah.
amount, and it wasn't over, and like I think technically because at one point we did have a vote to make me like the signatory, it's just to expedite things, I can just, if it was under a certain amount, we didn't have to go through like, I'm just trying to put it easy, that's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, who knows?
And again, too, it's like the CPC is sub-separate from the selectmen, so I
Yeah.
don't like them rubber stamping things that they
Don't
shouldn't.
have any control.
Yeah, they don't have any control over, but that's my 2 cents on that. I don't have anything else, as far as project updates, so we'll just scoot right along to CPC signage. So I find that kind of like fell through the cracks on me, but I finally ordered the yard signs and the plaques that we had talked about. I think we originally voted to allocate like 110 and 200 and change for each one, so it was 100 for the yard signs and then 200 for the plaques. I got 12 of the yard signs for a total of $70.20, and then 6 of the plaques for $143.44, so those came in a little bit less than the original estimate that we had, so that was good. I ordered them through like the town's Amazon account, so usually the turnaround's pretty quick, I'll probably see those next week. Yeah, that's it on that, so I'll let you guys know at the next meeting, I'll bring them if they're in for the next meeting, which they should be. Yeah. Alright, so next up, new business, application of eligibility for the Dayton Historical Society. The project was repair restoration of a bulging, collapsing, load-bearing wall. I did confirm with Chris Pacheco, because I think I had this question myself, and I asked her, and then Dave asked the same, that they were referring, that the building is the Winslow Davis Museum. So I did confirm that with the Historical Society, that's the project in question. Pat, do you wanna bring up your concerns?
And I can talk to this a little bit if you want, because I'm the vice president of that too.
Okay.
If you want some details. So as you know, it's the one on Center Street on the south wall, there's a bulging outside that you can see from the outside, and it was looked at by Manny Gomes and Manny Labor. And a lot of it is, it's some kind of water, it looks like, but it's unknown until you start to open it up. So he estimated, $10,000 to $12,000 to repair it, based on what he could see from inside and outside. And then we've also submitted an application to the Cultural Facilities grant round for that closed in December. And we'll know in mid-May if we got any money from them or not.
Okay, so you guys already have an alternate funding source that you're exploring.
We're exploring whatever we can because we have limited funds, the society has limited funds. They do have a restoration account, but it doesn't have much in it, certainly not enough to fund all of that.
Mhm.
And fundraising is planned to, help support that project because the cultural facilities grant is a 50-50 reimbursable grant from the state. It's similar to the HVAC at
Yeah.
Smith Memorial.
Okay.
Okay. So one of the questions I had, and I haven't had a chance to look at the commission, is did the Dayton Historical Commission declare the Winslow Davis property as being locally significant back in 2016 when they did the project? So I can look at those minutes to see, because if you look at the flow chart for CPA funding for historic projects, one of the first question is whether it is, the second question, if it's on the state register of historic places or if it's been declared locally significant by the commission. So we have to find that out. I think I kind of have an issue with their flow chart, because when you read about it and you read about their historic stuff, it sounds like any property that's on the National Register or the State Register would be considered eligible for funding through CPC, with the CPA funding. But then if you read further, it's things that have public, that the public can use versus private property. So there's a fine line there, as far as this, usage and all of that. There is already a covenant on the property from 2016. I don't know if that would cover it, because that is one of their recommendations, is to have some sort of deed restrictions.
So I think for as far as determining eligibility, I think we can all agree that it has historic value to Dayton.
Absolutely,
I
can talk to that too.
Yeah, but it's just, my only thought process here is I'd love to dig into what you're looking at for the funding source, because I've always been of the mindset, and it does show in some of the regulations, that even when you talk about, a public owned property versus a private owned property, it's not a best practice to use CPC
Right.
funds for that. So I think that's a deeper conversation that we can have as far as funding. But, just on the surface here, the preservation of a historic resource, I think it's kind of a pretty cut and dry that it is eligible, but then we can kind of dig in
Okay, yeah.
on if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense to you guys?
It does to me. My question in general, and we don't have to visit this today necessarily. And Pat, you may not know the answer to it, but here's my thought is, on the surface, I agree. It's probably going to meet the criteria, probably very likely going to meet the criteria. The question I have separately is whether or not the figure of the $10,000 to $10,000 to $12,000 has only come from one company or more than one. And the only reason I'm concerned is once they open that area up and take a look at it, what happens if it turns out it's significant and we're going to $20,000, $25,000, $30,000? We can't, my concern is we run the risk of leaving a project in limbo, and that potentially we may need to authorize more for the protection of the project. That doesn't have to be decided today, but it's just one of the things I raise as to whether or not it's worth trying to get other potential companies to look at what the possibilities are.
Part of the problem is you have a limited number of people in the area that work on historic buildings, and Manny Gomes has done historic buildings. But that was one of the things that I thought of today too, Jonathan, is if we should have more than one person look at it. Some contractors also consider it a smaller project and don't really come out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think as long as you make a, conscious effort to contact, I think that's good I mean, I've had projects, for Parks and Rec that are, $1,500, $2,000
Right.
projects, and you just get two prices, cause you just don't know. So it's always good to have a couple if you can, but.
And I could check with Ken, I think he did reach out to a couple of other people,
Yeah.
I don't think if they ever came out, then.
Yeah, I mean, I see that as, the society doing their due diligence, even if nobody comes out, they don't come out, it is what it is, but, yeah, I would.
Again, and it may not be possible to get another company, but I'm just thinking down the road, if when we consider this in terms of the dollar value and so forth, if we may need to consider a higher value, just in the event it comes in higher. If it comes in at $10,000 or $12,000 and we're already funding $25,000, then that's great. But you know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Yeah, we can have that discussion with them, because I would assume that when we get to the application for funding, that probably some of
That's
the numbers will come and back that up.
I
Motion,
think Dave was going to say something too, and I cut him off by mistake.
Dave?
Yes, I didn't quite catch it. Who does own the building?
The Dayton Historical Society owns it.
Okay, so strictly speaking, it's not town-owned property. Okay, I understand, yeah.
So we're just discussing the application for eligibility for the Winslow Davis Museum project. And we're having a little bit of a brief discussion on the next step, but I think we're kind of all in agreement that it is eligible just because we've deemed it historical.
Yeah, because Dan was there too when the estimate was given.
Okay.
alright, motion to approve the community preservation eligibility form for the Winslow Davis Museum repair restoration of a building collapsing load-bearing wall.
A second.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any other discussion? Hearing none, roll call vote.
Alicia Wilson, aye.
Jack Mills, aye.
Dan Higgins, aye.
Jonathan Gale, aye.
Dave Eckerson, aye.
And Kevin Smith is an aye. Kevin, before we go to public input, do you have anything?
Just glad to be here.
Okay, it's nice to see you. I don't see any public input, so with that,
Motion to adjourn?
I make that motion.
Second.
motion made and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Please don't on adjournment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can just say aye. Thank you, Dan, it's nice to see you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, have a